It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman, and to be mastered she must be conquered. You wear armor because you think it makes you strong. You hold the shield, you fasten the plates, you hide behind steel and silence, yet the very weight that promises safety drags you into weakness. Armor keeps you standing, but it also keeps you from moving. You think you are protected, but in truth you are imprisoned inside your own defense. The illusion of protection is the oldest trap in war and in life. Castles with thickest walls often starved first. Generals who hid behind fortifications lost when the enemy cut their supply lines. History shows again and again, the fortress is not strength, it is isolation. The same is true for you. When you wrap yourself in layers of false toughness, you cut yourself off from the very ground where victory is decided. Do not confuse barriers with power. Do not confuse walls with control. Today, armor has changed shape. It is no longer iron, plates or stone walls. It is the glowing screen you stare into to avoid speaking to someone face to face. It is the mask you wear at work when you smile without meaning it. It is the small lie you tell to appear confident when you feel unsure. Phones, filters, postures, these are the new shields. You tell yourself they help you connect, but in reality, they guard you so tightly that no one can truly reach you. Armor, in this age, is not metal, it is distance. And distance is weakness disguised as strength. There is also the trap of invincibility. You believe if no one can wound you, you cannot fall. But steel cracks under pressure. A soldier who refuses to expose any weakness becomes brittle, unable to adapt, unable to bend when the world demands it. Pretending to be untouchable makes you fragile. When life strikes, and it always does, the armor shatters and you are left without resilience. Strength is not the absence of blows. Strength is the ability to take them, absorb them, and strike back with precision. Drop the armor. Let yourself move freely. Let words be sharp, not hidden. Let your body face the world without shields. Power is not in what you cover, but in what you command. Speak with clarity, not noise. Stand with openness, not layers. Face the battlefield of each day uncloaked, and you will rule it. Remember this: armor is weakness. Drop it and rule naked. A throne is useless if the ruler locks himself inside a fortress and never commands. The mind works the same way. You are the sovereign of your inner kingdom, but the armor you wear does not protect you from enemies. It cuts you off from your own authority. History has shown rulers who mistook walls for power. Cities with impenetrable fortifications often collapsed not by siege, but by starvation, rebellion, or the decay of leadership inside. The thicker the wall, the weaker the throne became, because the king ruled over silence instead of people. Strength comes not from hiding, but from commanding. Your mental armor works the same way. Pride that refuses correction is armor. The distraction that dulls the focus is armor. The numbness you choose through endless scrolling, drinking, or avoidance is armor. Each layer feels like safety, but in reality, it dethrones your clarity. When you armor your mind with constant stimulation, you are no longer sovereign. You are a prisoner inside a fortress of noise. Control is lost, not because an enemy conquered you, but because you surrendered to walls of your own making. A ruler without vision is no ruler at all. In the modern world, mental armor often looks like over-preparation or emotional withdrawal. You convince yourself that detachment equals strength, that ignoring the problem proves dominance. Yet detachment is often cowardice disguised as calm. Imagine two colleagues disagreeing in a meeting. One crosses his arms, stays silent, and pretends he is above the conflict. That is armor. The other listens, acknowledges the concern, and responds directly without aggression. That is the command. The first hides. The second rule: you must train yourself to be the second. Armor blocks influence, presence projects it. The true throne emerges only when armor is stripped away. To rule your mind, you must confront fear directly instead of covering it. To sharpen clarity, you must strip off distraction and sit in stillness until the noise settles. To lead yourself, you must accept that vulnerability is not weakness, but the kind of exposure that forces precision. Command begins when you face the battlefield without steel between you and the world. A king without armor must rely on will, and will is the purest weapon you own. Drop the armor within. Rule from clarity, not walls. Rule from exposure, not concealment. Rule with presence, not pretense. Remember this. The throne is yours only when the armor falls. Morning is the battlefield where victory or defeat is first decided. The moment you open your eyes, war begins. If you start the day armored, in excuses, hesitation, and delay, you enter combat already wounded. The strongest warriors of history understood this truth. Before dawn, they stripped down, bathed in cold water, prayed, or trained. They shed the comfort of sleep, exposed themselves to harsh air, and faced the rising sun with nothing to shield them. It was not weakness, it was ritual strength. By standing bare before the day, they sharpened their resolve. Stripping first meant they entered battle light, fast and unencumbered. Contrast that with the modern armor of delay. The snooze button feels like protection, but it is a shield of weakness. Reaching for the phone before your feet touch the ground is armor made of distraction. Indulging in comfort before purpose is armor forged from decay. Each choice that feels safe robs you of momentum. The battle is lost before you step onto the field. What you call rest is often surrendered. What you call preparation is often hesitation. Weak. I'll start once I'm ready. Strong. I'm ready because I start. Weak. 5 more minutes. Strong. The fight begins now. When you begin the morning without armor, you feel exposed. That exposure is the point. A cold shower shocks you awake and proves you are alive. Silence before sunrise forces you to face your own thoughts with no buffer. Exercise before excuses burns hesitation before the enemy even approaches. Beginning raw means the first strike you land is clean and precise. You cut sharper because you carry no excess. Imagine the soldier who steps onto the field in heavy armor, sluggish, already tired from the weight. Now imagine the one who strips it off, trusting speed, will, and precision. Which one dictates the fight? The answer is clear. The same applies to you. Strip the armor of delay. Tack the morning while others hide behind blankets, screens, and excuses. Do this daily, and you train yourself to lead with clarity instead of comfort. Your first move is the most important. Win the morning and the day bends to your will. Remember this. Begin unarmored, and you will always strike first. Armor rattles. Silence cuts sharper. The loudest warrior is rarely the most feared. In history, both monks and generals understood that stillness is not weakness, but a weapon. Commanders who could hold silence at the council table forced their rivals into nervous speech. Monastic leaders who trained the mind through disciplined quiet gained an authority that outlasted armies. Stillness did not retreat. It was a throne of control. Those who spoke less often ruled more completely because their words landed with the weight of strategy, not noise. Modern life builds armor against silence. Notifications clatter like metal plates. The constant scroll of chatter fills every pause. Talking without purpose becomes a shield to avoid being exposed. This is noise armor. You convince yourself that by always responding, posting, or explaining, you are strong. In truth, you are hiding behind sound. Noise protects you from stillness because stillness demands you face what lies inside. If you cannot sit in silence, you cannot rule your mind. The moment you armor yourself with endless noise, you surrender clarity. A predator uses silence as its most lethal weapon. The tiger does not announce its presence. The hawk does not argue. With the wind, they wait, still, exposed, unarmored, listening. To drop your armor is to sharpen your senses beyond those who are distracted. In stillness, you hear the move before it is made. You see hesitation in the eyes of others. You anticipate because you are not busy proving yourself. You are watching, absorbing, calculating. Silence is not passive. It is active dominance. Consider a disagreement at work. One person fills the room with defensive words, speaking faster, louder, believing volume equals strength. The other remains composed, lets the noise burn itself out, then responds with a single clear sentence. The second command. Why? Because silence was weaponized. Noise is armor. Silence is blade. You must train yourself to drop the armor of noise, turn off the notifications, step back from the chatter, hold back the impulse to fill space with unmeasured words. Learn to listen deeper than others can tolerate. Rule the silence as your throne. Then, when you speak, the impact will strike harder than any shield can block. Remember this. Silence sharpens the sword. War is not won by what you carry, but by what you cut away. Generals who understood this stripped their armies of excess. Some burned ships so retreat was impossible. Others destroyed supplies to force soldiers to fight lean, fast, and desperate. Ruthlessness in history often meant survival, because every ounce of weight not tied to victory was a liability. New armor can become chains, and cutting it away was the only way to sharpen resolve. You face the same law. The armor you drag through life is not steel but clutter. You cling to alliances that drain you, commitments that dilute your energy, and habits that slow your movement. You armor yourself with tasks you do not believe, in relationships you no longer respect, and conversations that go nowhere. This armor feels like duty, but it is excess. Weak. I can't say no, they'll be upset. Strong. I eliminate what weakens me. Weak. I should keep this just in case. Strong. If it does not serve the fight, it is gone. The enemy gains ground every day you keep carrying what should have been cut. The act of elimination is not cruelty. It is discipline. You do not need to announce it with fury. You do it with precision. A soldier sharpens his blade by grinding away metal. You sharpen your life by stripping away what is false. The phone is filled with noise, the endless events you attend out of obligation, the so-called friends who vanish. When tested, each is armor that weighs you down. Cut them. The lighter you are, the faster you strike. The leaner you live, the more lethal your presence becomes. Imagine a disagreement where someone insists you must keep every connection intact. Instead of defending with long explanations, you respond calmly, I choose focus. That is leadership without noise. The ruthless act is not in words, but in the clarity of action. You do not need permission to eliminate. You need only resolve. Each piece of armor cut away becomes a blade gained. Every excess dropped turns into energy reclaimed. This is the shedding ritual. Do it consistently, and you will feel the difference. Movement without drag, decisions without hesitation, strength without compromise. Remember this. Eliminate ruthlessly, and every cut becomes power. Authority is not armor. Authority is presence. History remembers commanders who stood before their men not hidden behind layers of steel, but visible, vulnerable, and still feared. Julius Caesar often marched without extravagant armor, walking the same ground as his soldiers. Alexander placed himself in the thick of battle, sometimes exposed to injury, yet his troops followed him with greater loyalty because they saw a man who did not hide. Presence ruled where armor could not. Leaders who relied too heavily on their shields often lost both trust and command because the soldiers believed the protection was for the leader, not for the cause. In the modern world, armor often disguises itself as professionalism. You put on a false tone, a forced smile, or an exaggerated formality that is meant to impress but instead kills trust. Colleagues sense when your words are armor. They hear when your politeness is a shield instead of a connection. Authority is not in polished jargon or corporate masks. Authority is in clarity, in saying exactly what you mean with calm precision. Weak. We should maybe try this if possible. Strong. Here is the plan. Execute it. Weak. Let me get back to you later. Strong. Here is my decision now. Armor speaks vaguely to avoid exposure. Presence speaks directly because it does not fear consequence. The true mask of command is chosen, not hidden. A mask is not deception. It is strategy. A king wears the crown, not because it protects, but because it signals authority. You too must choose your mask carefully. The tone you set, the posture you hold, the words you decide to use. These are not armor but weapons. The key difference is that armor conceals while the mask reveals. You reveal control, you reveal authority, you reveal direction. A chosen mask amplifies your power, but armor drains it. Picture a disagreement at work where tempers rise. One person retreats behind vague formalities to avoid risk. Another responds with measured, calm words, acknowledging the concern but holding the decision firmly. Which one commands? The second. Authority flows not from hiding, but from owning the space. With clarity, strip the armor of fakery, choose the mask of command. Presence, not protection, builds loyalty and fear at once. The throne is ruled by exposure, not concealment. Remember this: armor hides, presence commands. Your greatest enemy is not outside, but within. Kings throughout history learned this too late. Some armored themselves so heavily against assassination that they became prisoners of their own defenses. They walled themselves in, trusted no one, and in doing so lost flexibility, vision, and command. The fortress that was meant to keep them alive turned into a coffin. Their paranoia killed their power more effectively than any rival ever could. Armor against the outside became chains inside. You do the same when you hide behind layers of mental defense. Fear disguises itself as logic. Excuses present themselves as safety. You say you are being careful, when in truth, you are being cowardly. You call it strategy, when it is avoidance. Weak: I'll wait until the timing is perfect. Strong: I will create the timing. Weak: I'm not ready yet. Strong: I sharpen as I move. Every excuse is armor. Every hesitation is steel you strap onto yourself, slowing your assassin inside. That inner assassin is precision. It is the strike of clarity, the instinct that cuts through doubt. When you armor yourself with overthinking, you cage it, you blunt its blade by wrapping it in hesitation. To unleash it, you must drop the armor of fear, strip away the comfort of delay, and trust the kill strike within. The assassin does not carry weight. He carries nothing but focus. He enters, eliminates, and exits without noise. That is what your mind can be when you stop holding it back. Think of a disagreement where you wanted to speak up but armored yourself with silence, telling yourself you were being polite. The moment passed. Your assassin was caged. Now think of the times you spoke directly, calmly, without hesitation. Precision landed. Respect followed. The difference is armor versus release. You must strip away self-sabotage. Stop disguising fear as wisdom. Stop hiding delay under the mask of planning. Free the assassin inside you by trusting clarity over armor. Precision is born from exposure, not protection. Remember this: drop fear's armor, and your inner blade will cut true. Hunger is sharper than steel. Wolves do not wear armor when they hunt. Their strength is in the rawness of need, in the edge that comes from being exposed to cold, to pain, to risk. Many warrior tribes understood this. They stripped half-naked before battle, not because they lacked protection, but because they wanted to fight with hunger visible, with no barrier between themselves and death. They embodied the truth that armor dulls appetite. When you carry too much, you lose the speed, the rage, and the edge required to win. Modern life hides that hunger under layers of comfort. You armor yourself with indulgence. You scroll to escape. You eat to numb. You surround yourself with fake confidence built on clothes, possessions, or borrowed words instead of substance. This armor is soft but just as heavy. It convinces you that you are safe when in reality you are only sedated. The wolf that overfeeds cannot run. The predator that grows lazy loses the sharpness of its teeth. Weak: I deserve to relax before I've earned it. Strong. I feed my hunger by facing discomfort. Weak. I need to protect myself from failure. Strong. I grow sharper by risking failure. Armor is comfort disguised as strength, and it kills your edge. When you drop that armor, instincts reawaken. The predator in you sharpens. You begin to sense opportunities others miss because they are dulled by their shields. You feel timing, rhythm, and precision because nothing blocks your senses. Hunger drives focus. Hunger builds speed. Hunger fuels dominance. A wolf without armor is dangerous because every strike is pure, every movement is survival. That same principle applies to you. Picture two people starting a project. One surrounds himself with endless preparation, waiting until everything feels safe. The other dives in, lean, hungry, willing to adapt. The second moves faster, learns quicker, and strikes harder. The difference is armor versus exposure. Safety delays, hunger accelerates. Feed the wolf within you. Strip away the excess, cut the indulgence, deny the false shields. Leave yourself exposed enough to feel the bite of hunger. That hunger will carve you into something sharper than armor could ever make you. Remember this: hunger is the blade, armor only dulls it. On the chessboard, the king is the most exposed piece. He moves slow, he cannot hide behind speed or power, yet the entire game revolves around his survival. This paradox mirrors leadership and life itself. History shows rulers who understood that exposure could be turned into leverage. They knew that being seen, visible, even fragile, forced others to protect them with greater loyalty. Kings who cloaked themselves too heavily in armor often lost influence because their people saw fear instead of authority. But kings who ruled visibly, who carried the weight of the crown openly, made themselves the center of the board. Their vulnerability became power. In the modern chessboard of careers and relationships, the same rule applies. Those who pretend invincible often collapse first. The employee who hides behind jargon, never admitting weakness, becomes forgettable and replaceable. The leader who never exposes uncertainty breeds suspicion and loses trust. People defend what they can see, not what hides behind shields. If you armor yourself with arrogance or fake perfection, others stop investing in you because they sense the pretense. Weak. I have no weaknesses. Strong. I adapt when challenged. Weak. I must appear flawless. Strong. I show enough to prove I'm real. Exposure builds connection, and connection builds defense. Strategic exposure is not recklessness. It is choosing to reveal just enough to command the board. Like a king who steps forward with limited movement but total authority, you must accept that others will see your limits. This does not weaken you. It strengthens the structure around you. When you drop the armor of false invincibility, people rally harder, defend stronger, and commit deeper. They know you are human, and precisely because of that, they stand guard. The king is not powerful because he hides. He is powerful because every other piece revolves around him, protecting him as he holds the throne. Imagine a disagreement where a leader is pressed for an answer. One pretends certainty, offering a hollow response that convinces no one. Another admits the complexity, but speaks firmly about the next step forward. The second commands more respect, not less, because authority is not in pretending perfection, it is in owning presence. Drop the armor of invincibility. Rule the chessboard through visibility, not concealment. Stand where all can see you. The fragile king is still the axis of the game. Remember this. Naked kings still rule the board. Ritual is the forge of will. In every era, those who sought strength understood that armor had no place in initiation. Warriors walked across fire barefoot. They endured cold rivers with nothing but skin exposed. They tested themselves with pain and hunger, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew armor would block the lesson. These rites stripped away the illusion of safety and proved one truth: discipline is born in exposure. If you can endure without protection, you gain a power no shield can grant. Modern rituals demand the same stripping. Cold showers force you to meet discomfort without hiding. Fasting strips away the armor of constant consumption. Meditation exposes you to the restless mind you try to bury under distraction. Each of these practices feels raw, but that rawness is where control is forged. Comfort is armor. Strip it away and the ritual cuts deeper. Weak. I need comfort to prepare. Strong. I prepare by facing discomfort. Weak. I'll push myself when I feel ready. Strong. I build readiness by pushing now. Armor keeps you from intensity. Exposure unlocks it. The iron. Will is not handed to you. It is hammered into you by ritual. Each repetition is a strike of the smith's hammer. Each exposure to pain, hunger, or silence tempers your resolve. If you armor yourself, you dull the blade before it's finished. The will remains soft. But if you stay raw, every strike hardens you until you become unbreakable. Discipline is not about never failing. It is about removing the armor that keeps you from meeting the test directly. Consider two people beginning the same challenge. One approaches with excuses, layering comfort to ease the strain. The other approaches stripped, meeting the test with no buffer. The first leaves unchanged, the ritual blunted by armor. The second leaves sharpened because nothing stood between him and the fire. This difference is everything. You must treat ritual as battle. Enter the naked excuses. Face the cold, the silence, the strain. Refuse the armor of comfort. Refuse the shield of delay. Build will through exposure, not protection. The iron will belong only to those who strip. Remember this. Discipline is forged bare, never armored. The paradox of power is that the more armor you wear, the more pierceable you become. History shows that icons who stripped away false fronts ruled longer in memory than those who hid behind walls. Leaders who displayed their flaws openly often commanded deeper loyalty. Julius Caesar was known for his bold exposure, riding into battle without heavy protection, showing that presence itself was his shield. Alexander inspired armies by leading from the front, vulnerable yet untouchable because his men turned that exposure into devotion. Their authority was not forged in armor, but in raw command. Modern life confirms the same rule. The untouchables of today are not the ones who fake perfection, but the ones who reveal humanity without apology. A leader who admits uncertainty, but moves decisively earns more trust than the one who hides behind jargon. A friend who admits weakness commands more respect than one who pretends invincible. Exposure creates connection. Connection creates defense. Weak. I have no flaws. Strong. I face my flaws and still move forward. Weak. I can't let anyone see my doubts. Strong. I lead despite my doubts. Invisibility isolates, but visibility makes you unpierceable because others rally to protect what they can see. The final fortress is paradoxical. Nakedness becomes the throne no army can breach. When you strip away the armor of lies, masks, and excuses, you leave nothing for enemies to attack. Criticism has no weapon if you already revealed your truth. Manipulation has no leverage if you stand with nothing to hide. The naked king cannot be dethroned because the throne is not built on pretense. It is built on exposure turned into strength. Think of a disagreement in a meeting. One person hides behind polished phrases, saying little of substance, hoping to appear flawless. Another admits the challenge, exposes the risk, and still sets a clear direction. The second command. The vulnerability becomes invincibility because authority is grounded, not masked. To become untouchable, you must strip. Drop the armor of perfection. Drop the armor of denial. Drop the armor of performance. Stand raw and let that rawness harden into a fortress no attack can break. Nakedness is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength because nothing false remains to pierce. Remember this. Exposed yet invincible, that is the true throne. Armor falls, power rises. The lesson has echoed through centuries of war and leadership. Safety is an illusion, and victory belongs to those willing to step into danger without shields. When armies clung to fortresses, they withered. When leaders trusted walls more than will, they lost their thrones. The great victories of history were claimed not by those who hid, but by those who stripped false safety and fought exposed. Caesar, crossing the Rubicon, did not march behind fortifications. He marched with resolve, daring Rome itself. Spartans at Thermopylae did not win by armor alone, but by the raw force of discipline. Every legend of endurance proves the same law. Armor is weight, and weight breaks kings. In today's world, the battlefield is different, but the law remains. Power is not in the perfection you project, but in the authenticity you weaponize. The executive who admits uncertainty but leads decisively commands greater respect than the one who hides behind jargon. The artist who strips away performance and shows raw truth outlasts those who chase approval with empty polish. The individual who dares to stand without shields, without filters, without excuses, becomes untouchable. You respect the one who is willing to say, "Here I am, nothing hidden, nothing false." That exposure is power. That rawness bends others into loyalty because it cannot be faked. Imagine the throne itself. A king armored to the teeth looks strong but distant, unapproachable, brittle. Strike hard enough and the armor shatters, leaving nothing inside. But a king who stands unarmored commands differently. He is seen, fully visible, yet unassailable because his authority comes from presence, not protection. He is the storm itself, and storms cannot be pierced. This is the final fortress, not built of stone, steel, or noise, but of exposure turned into strength. In your life, you face this same choice daily. Do you armor yourself with excuses, with delay, with masks, with noise? Or do you strip them and move with precision? Weak. I need to protect myself before I act. Strong. I gain strength because I act exposed. Weak. I must look flawless to be respected. Strong. Respect comes because I am real. Each layer of armor you remove sharpens you. Each shield dropped frees your movement. To become the predator king of your own existence, you must converge every principle. Rule your mind as throne by stripping distraction. Win the morning by stripping delay. Weaponize silence by cutting noise. Eliminate false weights ruthlessly. Command with presence, not pretense. Free the inner assassin by dropping fear. Feed the wolf by dropping comfort. Rule the chessboard by standing exposed. Forge the iron will by stripping excuses. And finally, become untouchable by embracing nakedness as your fortress. Each step strips armor. Each step builds dominion. This is the final battle, to stand raw and still strike harder than those weighed down by false safety. When you dare to expose yourself, you become invincible. When you refuse the armor, you rise beyond reach. The Predator King is not the one who hides, but the one who rules unshielded, commanding storms with nothing but will. Remember this: armor falls, power rises. Armor is not strength. Armor is prison. History makes this truth plain. Rulers who clung to walls and shields eventually suffocated inside them. The fortress they thought was safe became the very reason they lost power. When you keep armor on, you live confined. You think you are safe, but what you are is caged. Every piece of armor that stays strapped keeps you from moving, adapting, and striking. If you cling to it, you spend your life locked inside a shell, mistaking paralysis for control. That is the final warning. Keep the armor, and you will die, imprisoned by your own protection. Look at the modern battlefield you walk through each day. Power today is not in polished fronts or flawless images. It is in authenticity sharpened into a weapon. The colleague who admits a mistake but keeps momentum, earns more respect than the one who hides behind excuses. The leader who strips false masks commands loyalty more deeply than the one who pretends invincible. When you drop the armor, every moment becomes raw dominance because you are no longer spending energy holding shields. You are striking directly, unblocked, unhindered, undeniable. Weak. I must appear strong. Strong. I am strong because I stand exposed. Weak. I need layers to protect me. Strong. I need clarity to rule me. To live this way is to embrace the paradox. Armor is a weakness. Nakedness is the rule. You do not need shields to lead. You need presence. You do not need concealment to strike. You need precision. When the armor falls, you do not become fragile. You become untouchable because there is nothing false to pierce. Authority without armor is the throne no one can breach. Strip the armor. Face the world bare. Command with exposure, not concealment. Strike with presence, not pretense. Remember this. Armor is weakness. Drop it and rule naked.